feeling. It is interesting.
Right?
Yes,
Like
like
that.
that.
Sound resonated about it. We have the real.
Yes. All right. All right. Good morning. Sorry, everybody ready? Good, good. Go straight ahead. Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the press. It's afternoon already. Yes. Well, thank you as usual for assembling here today for another press briefing episode. And of course, we've already had one full week of school. I'm pretty sure the Minister of Education would have already provided his own updates, but in the event that you have more queries, concerns, questions concerning the start of the academic term, the Minister of Education will provide you with some updates. So without further ado.
Thank you very much, Mr. Isidore. Good morning, members of the press. My name is Sean Edward, spelled SHAWNEDWARD, Minister for Education, Sustainable Development, Innovation, Science, Technology, and Vocational Training. I'm happy to report this morning that we've had a very successful reopening of school across the country, and that the 26,000 school children entrusted in the care of the Ministry of Education, they are in school as we speak, and they are being attended to by their teachers. We were able to execute a very successful summer works program. That is a work program that basically allows us to undertake repairs to the various school buildings across the country and ensuring that the students and the teachers operate within a comfort level, within an environment where learning and teaching can be most effective. Save for the Balata Primary School, the summer works program was completed, and as I indicated earlier, all schools reopened on time. We did receive an additional $1 million from the Prime Minister for ongoing repairs, and this has to be timetabled very, very delicately to ensure that there are no disruptions to instruction. So the additional $1 million that we got from the Prime Minister, the Plant and Equipment Unit headed by Mr. Hubert Hart, working very closely with the Office of the Chief Education Officer, they are putting a timetable in place to ensure that whatever repairs we continue to undertake will not adversely affect the flow of school or interfere with instruction. So some of the interventions will happen on evenings after dismissal, others will happen on the weekend, but the one thing I can assure you is that the space will not be compromised. It will always be conducive for teaching and learning whilst we look to complement some of the work that we would have done during the summer break. So I'm very excited about what is happening in the Ministry of Education. I would have, in an address to the nation, speak about quite a few initiatives that are currently being rolled out by the Philip J. Pierre administration. And one of the areas that I probably should have accentuated is the level of psychosocial support that we will be providing this academic year to our students and our teachers. As we speak, and it has been so for a very, very long time, there is only one attendance officer in the Ministry of Education, and this individual is supposed to provide oversight for every school in the country, from Vieux-Fort in the south to Grosley in the north, Soufrière in the west, and Dennery on the east coast. I had a sit down with Prime Minister Pierre prior to the reopening of school, and through the Ministry of Finance, of course, supported by the Office of the Prime Minister, we will be recruiting 4 additional attendance officers to basically go into the communities and to engage families, parents in particular, and students who have proven to be delinquent and not attending school with the degree of regularity that we believe they ought to be attending. The 4 additional officers will be complemented by an additional 8 psychosocial support officers to complement the work of our school counselors and district counselors. Let's face it, we continue to provide for our students through the school feeding program. We continue to ensure that we give them as pristine a space within which to operate as possible with their teachers. But very importantly for us is the psychosocial well-being of our students. We have students who come from dysfunctional families, broken homes, and even before they can sit in a classroom and absorb what the teacher is imparting, we have to ensure that they are in a frame of mind that would lend to they themselves, the students, being ready to grasp whatever is being taught. So we will have an additional 8, as I indicated, psychosocial officers to complement the work of the counseling team we have at the Ministry of Education, at the district level, and at the school level itself. We are also investing heavily in early childhood education. We are poised to roll out a comprehensive universal early childhood education policy. Currently, St. Lucia enjoys universal secondary education, and we also have universal primary education. And we're saying the time has come for us as a country to have a universal early childhood education policy. The Prime Minister, last year, he made a subvention available to early childhood practitioners, the private practitioners that is, where every private preschool or early childhood center received a grant from the government of $2,500. This has been increased this year, where each of the private early childhood centers will be receiving a grant from the government of $3,000. The Prime Minister also last year made available to early childhood centers, private centers that is, $50 on behalf of every parent to pay for the services on behalf of the child. That has been increased this year. It has been doubled, where every child will be receiving compliments, the government, $100 for early childhood services. So this sits well with the broader vision that we have for early childhood education in this country. We have spoken at length as an administration about having one university graduate per household. And how do we intend on achieving this? By providing scholarships and higher educational opportunities for the young people of this country. In recent weeks, we have made available to young St. Lucians 75 first-generation scholarships where students can enroll at Monroe University to pursue bachelor's degrees. 2 weeks ago, 44 St. Lucians left for Taiwan to pursue higher education. This year, 20 young St. Lucians will be going to Morocco to study. 11 would have left for Cuba, and there's an additional 5 St. Lucian students who will be taking up studies in Hungary. So the program to have at least one university graduate per household is ongoing. It is one I'm very excited about, and I'm extremely pleased with the strides that we are making in this regard. This morning, Cabinet will be deliberating on a memo emanating from the Ministry of Education, where 120 bursaries will be approved for young St. Lucians who have enrolled at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College to embark on studies. Still at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, the government has made a substantial investment in nursing education. We currently have a deficit in our healthcare system, where we've been told that we are short by 150 to 200 nurses. And one of the strategies that we've employed to try and retain the nurses graduating from the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College is to subsidize tuition for the nurses. They're currently offering a Bachelor of Nursing program at Sir Arthur, which spans a period of 4 years. So the student who's enrolling in year 1 complements the government of St. Lucia tuition support in the form of $2,500. The second-year student gets support from the government in the form of $2,500. The third-year student, in his or her penultimate year, receives, by way of tuition support from the government, $5,000. And the final year or fourth-year student in the nursing program at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College receives a tuition grant from the government of $10,000. 140 nursing students at Sir Arthur stand to benefit from that particular intervention. I have been at the college in recent times to interface with college administrators, board members, faculty heads, and even the students themselves. And I can tell you there's a buzz at Sir Arthur, particularly in the Health Sciences Division, where the students are openly expressing their gratitude to the Prime Minister and the government for this timely intervention. So all in all, as it relates to higher educational opportunities, scholarships, and bursaries, this government, since we came into office, we have expended, or we've spent just under $12 million only for higher educational opportunities, scholarships, and bursaries. And this is in keeping with what we would have said on the campaign trail, that upon assuming office, we would place a premium on education. There's a lot more coming in the education sphere, and I will leave it to the Prime Minister to make some bold declarations in terms of the additional support that he's putting together, support packages, he's putting together for students enrolled at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College and higher education in general. Our government, upon assuming office, and it is a promise that we made on the campaign trail, that we would be paying CXC, CSEC fees for fifth form students at the public secondary schools. Now, there was a time when the acronym CXC was synonymous for all examinations. CXC, as it pertains to us in St. Lucia, we focus primarily on CSEC, which is the exit exam for secondary students, and those who do post-secondary training with CXC, they sit the KIP. And before CSEC, you have the CXC CPEA, which is the Caribbean Primary Exit Assessment. For CXC CSEC, what most persons would refer to as CXC, that is the exam being taken in Form 5. We did say on the campaign trail that upon assuming office, we would be helping parents with CXC fees. Immediately upon assuming office, we started paying CXC CSEC fees for mathematics and English for every student, Form 5 student in the public primary school, secondary school system. The Prime Minister has increased the number of subjects being paid for to 4, as opposed to the 2 that we were paying for last year. So in addition to mathematics and English, we're paying for 1 science subject. We are also paying for 1 foreign language. So for English, the average Form 5 child would be required to pay $81.15. For mathematics, the child would be required to pay $81.15. For science, the child would be required, or the student would be required to pay $81.15. And for a foreign language, the average child is expected to pay $96.15 per foreign language. With the government now paying for mathematics, for English language, 1 science, and a foreign language, the government is covering, through the Ministry of Education, $340 on behalf of every child. And when you extrapolate that figure, given that on average we have approximately 2,200 students writing those subjects, you can well imagine how substantial an investment we are making in covering the fees for our students. Our government has once again come forward, and we've committed to paying the teaching material allowance, which we call the TMA, of $1,400. And you must understand that prior to this administration coming into office, the TMA was just a paltry amount. And Prime Minister Pierre, true to form, did promise that the TMA would have been increased. So today the increased TMA stands at $1,400, and every teacher in the school system, the public school system, will be receiving the $1,400 as teaching material allowance, irrespective of the teacher's employment status. So we have teachers in the system who are temporary, we have teachers who are permanent. Irrespective of your employment status, you stand to benefit from the TMA, which will be paid at the end of September. Temporary teachers. It was always a financial burden for temporary teachers to meet their commitments to their banks and their families at the end of August, because they were not being paid a salary in August. Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre, in his wisdom, thought that this was wrong, and he committed monies to ensure that temporary teachers, like their permanent counterparts, would receive a salary at the end of August. This morning, I can report here to you that every temporary teacher in the public school system in St. Lucia has received his or her salary. And again, irrespective of grade. So if you have a teacher who's teacher 2A, who has not been trained and has just entered the system and probably receiving $2,500 as an arbitrary amount for salary, that teacher would have gotten a salary commensurate with the grade. If the teacher happens to be a graduate teacher 2, and the employment status is still temporary, that teacher would get an amount commensurate with the grade at which he or she is employed. So every temporary teacher has been paid, and moving forward, this is something that we intend on keeping. This is not a one-off, but this is an intervention that we have made as an administration because we understand the plight of teachers, and we know how difficult it can be for some of them, given the commitments that they have to look after family, to try and further their education. Some of them have health issues. And like the students at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, whom we are helping by way of tuition support, the teachers are expressing their collective gratitude to our administration for that particular intervention that we have made on their behalf. So, as I indicated, we've made a very successful start to the academic year. I'm very excited about what is in store for the school year, and I must profit the opportunity to thank all the stakeholders who've been working with the Ministry of Education, in particular the St. Lucia Teachers Union, the National Principals Association, the police, the students' councils of the various schools, for the support, for the opportunities for dialogue, and to contribute meaningfully to the work program of the Ministry of Education. It does not matter who the Minister of Education is. It ought not to matter who the Permanent Secretary or the Chief Education Officer is, or who the senior management personnel at the Ministry of Education are. What is very important is for there to be buy-in so that in a symbiotic relationship, we can all move forward just to ensure that we are giving the best educational experience to the children of this country.
Just the first one, just to clarify on the expansion of support for the attendance officer. Is it that they will be simply monitoring, or they will also be investigating incidents of a lapse in attendance?
Yes, well, it's a combination of rules that are clearly spelled out in the terms of reference. I can report this morning that there's one particular officer who's been recruited and is working in the person of former Police Commissioner Cressida Pellius. And she has been given responsibility for education districts 5 and 6, that is the Miku area, Denry, and Viewfort. And the role of the attendance officer is a very, very important one. And as I indicated before, there's more to the education and development of young people than just having them in a classroom setting where a teacher imparts knowledge, skills, and attitudes, and then prepares students for evaluation or exam. This education minister and this administration that I'm a part of, we take a very keen interest in the holistic development of the child. So quite apart from the student who comes into the classroom, who's able to participate actively in the various lessons and extracurricular activities and things of that sort, we want to know what is happening to every student beyond the school compound, so that when we notice a pattern of delinquency and a pattern of absenteeism, we have a very, very particular interest in finding out what those reasons are. And the situation is even more acute with the boys than the girls. And we've had instances where education officials have had to go to homes and make interventions that are not even within their job description, just to try and salvage boys who would have fallen prey to some of the ills of society. So I think this is very important. As I said, 4 officers perhaps isn't ideal, but this represents a marked improvement over what obtained for more than a decade, where you had just one officer having to service an entire country. So I welcome the Prime Minister's intervention with 4 additional officers, and I think this can only augur well for a much better education system where our approach is one of balance. We will accentuate all we have to along the lines of the academics, but at the same time, we understand our responsibility to provide psychosocial support, to go into the community and to understand and appreciate the dynamics that are militating against the good conscience of our students, the goodwill of our parents, and we are here to provide support.
My other question, sorry. Last week, just before the opening of school, a memo from the ministry would have made its way into the public sphere, issuing an interim directive on student deportment with specific details on hair and how hair is kept. So can you maybe take us into those discussions which led to that interim directive, and if you can opine on the broader student deportment policy to come.
Well, I'm on the record as stating that the education system is more than just students being ready to sit exams and to pass exams and then to certify them to take up employment in the workforce. We have to be very careful as educators how we handle situations in schools. We have to be very careful in terms of what we impress upon the minds of our children. There will always be a place for proper deportment in any society. And the school has a tremendous responsibility in shaping the future, shaping tomorrow. And from very early, you want to inculcate in the minds of school children that there are certain behaviors, be it in terms of expression, in terms of dress and how you carry yourself, that are acceptable socially. And there are also behaviors that would portray you in a particular light. And what we want is for our students to be conforming, but be creative at the same time. So we establish standards and rules at the school level, just to get students to understand that not everything can go as we say, and that there are certain, as I said, patterns of behavior that society will accept, and there are also behaviors that society will frown upon. So when we put together a policy for deportment, the intention is not to show anybody up, but to get our children to understand that as you develop, as you grow, there are certain responsibilities that you'll have to yourself. A directive was issued that no child should be sent home because of hairstyles and things of that sort. And the reason for that is that this has been a very vexing issue for a very, very long time. This morning, a document will be sent to the cabinet for endorsement. The document was put together after extensive consultation with teachers, with principals, and other stakeholders. But like anything else, once there's public participation, you will not satisfy every individual in the public space. But I think generally the document that the Ministry of Education has compiled adequately captures the sentiments of educators, parents, and a lot of stakeholders who on a daily basis impact what happens in the education system.
Good afternoon, Minister.
Good afternoon.
My question has to do with special education teachers. Is there any initiative for this school year to kind of boost that section when it comes to education?
Yes, very well. SEN education, special needs education, is an area of programming in the Ministry of Education. I must tell you that we have a lot of work to do as it relates to the promotion of what we do at the Ministry of Education in relation to SEN education. Very recently, we did receive monies from the office, well, from the Ministry of Finance or the Prime Minister himself, where we were able to recruit 10 aides, additional personnel to help with special education and to help with our students. We also, through the Office of the Prime Minister, we were able to get resources to ensure that there's robust screening at the pre-kindergarten level to capture some of the deficiencies students may have when they enter the school system. As we speak, we have gotten approval for the construction of a brand new special ed center in Vieux-Fort. The latest that I got from my team was the exact location where the school had to be constructed. I can also tell you that the discussions have been ongoing in relation to the relocation of the Donata School in Castries. There's a plot of land earmarked on the Millennium Highway for that particular building. And there was also a plot of land somewhere in the vicinity of the Calvary that was also being considered for the construction of a new school for Donata and special education generally in the Castries Basin. Funding has been approved, so it's just a matter of sitting down with the Department of Physical Development and the other stakeholders to arrive at a final decision so that construction can begin very, very shortly. The Ministry of Education will also intend on recruiting teachers at the school level. It will not be feasible to have teachers at every school, but to increase the number of special education personnel we have with a view to sharing them on a district basis. The situation is sufficiently complex, but at the same time, we understand that we will not have the resources to deploy a teacher in every school or teachers in the quantum that the practitioners themselves are asking for. but instead put them at the district offices where they can be shared by schools, of course, using a modality derived or designed by the Chief Education Officer and her education officers.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.
Beautiful ladies, you all have to move. I appreciate all of this. At this time, yes. So now coming to the address you, take questions, would be the Minister for Physical Development, Local Government, who I'm sure is excited to tell you more about the latest development in Castries Central, of course, the rehabilitation of Serenity Park. Another notch under his belt in terms of the achievements, infrastructural upgrades, enhancements to under his ministry's purview, and of course the Castries Central constituency. So without further ado, Honorable Richard Frederick.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I will speak briefly on the recommissioning or reopening of Serenity Park and how it assists in creating a better tourism product. And of course, we are going to have a bumper cruise ship season, and what we in Central Castries are going to do to at least bring a certain sense of security to the streets. Okay, you all know the name Richard Frederick. Only on Friday, we witnessed the reopening of Serenity Park. Serenity Park was built under my watch. You want to stop it? Yes, it's done. Okay, let's go again. So on Friday, we saw the reopening of Serenity Park. It was built some 14 years ago, opened sometime in 2011. Obviously, by now, persons know it is the brainchild of your humble servant. And sadly, during the years 2011 and 2025, 14 years, whilst it remained a safe space, nothing was done to improve what Serenity Park stood for. I always knew that the task was incomplete, and so when the Almighty permitted me to reassume the ministerial position that I now hold and the district representative of Castries Central, I knew I had to continue. I immediately lay my plans on the table in terms of adding an amphitheater to Serenity Park with changing rooms. That is now done. And we have added 3 or 4 more vending facilities to further empower the people of this country. What we have realized is that we may not have the expertise within the Castries Constituency Council who owns the park. We may not have the expertise, and so a committee will be formed for the operation and the promotion of Serenity Park. We do know that it was meant to have been a place where weddings could have been kept. Visitors to our shores can get married there. If you go there now, you'll see the gazebo. The gazebo was meant actually to facilitate the entrance of the bride and groom by boat, come into the gazebo, get married right there, and have the festival or the activity or the fete or the party, whatever you want to call it, outside in the open area. So a committee will be formed as early as this week to spearhead the promotion and operation of Serenity Park. And I'm hoping that in the not-too-distant future, we can have some superstar being married right here at Serenity Park. So that in itself will set the stage for even greater international recognition. That having been said, one will understand that this government has been on a drive to improve our tourism product, given the fact that our foreign exchange. Tourism is the backbone of our foreign exchange. And we need to ensure that whatever we provide for visitors and obviously locals alike is top-notch. So Serenity Park stands as one of the first experiences cruise ship visitors would have as they disembark from the port. From there, we also have the anchorage, which was recently built, and we do know, all of us do know, the beauty and the kind of artistic character that Anchorage embraces. Then, not too far from that, we have the Jeremy Street Plaza, which was recently refurbished, and the tag was kept or held by GPH, who are now doing the boardwalk. So all in all, the government is creating a holistic environment to actually ensure that when visitors come here, they spend some money and that there's an economy that occurs within the tourism sector that permits each and every vendor in this country, each and every taxi driver to make a dollar. We are expecting this season a bumper cruise arrivals. We are expecting thousands and thousands of tourists. In fact, from my instructions, this year should be our largest cruise arrival year on calendar in the history of cruise arrivals. So that having been said, you must understand we have to create an enabling environment to ensure that our visitor experience is one that remains ineffaceably stamped on their minds, and they themselves can be used as some form of advertisement for St. Lucia, wittingly, unwittingly, or otherwise. They will go and tell their friends, and others would want to visit St. Lucia, as has been the case for Carnival on many, many occasions. So we are trying our best to enhance the visitor experience. One of the things I have given instructions to do is that the city police, we want to ensure that Castries is literally flooded with police officers during the times when we have a heavy cruise passenger arrival. And so I've given instructions to the city council, the mayor, and the inspector that all leave will be cancelled on days when we are heavily burdened, well, not burdened, but we are heavily laden with cruise arrivals to ensure that at least there is a sense of security that pervades the environment. And so alongside that, we have secured 200 new cameras. They are already in our possession at CCC. We are working along the Small Business Association, SLISBA. We are actually donating the cameras to businesses in the Castries Basin so that cameras can assist us in crime detection. We are rolling out that this week, and hopefully we should see full installation by the end of next week. The cameras are already with us. It is something that I said I wanted done to ensure. The sad thing is, you may ask business owners to put cameras. They may want to do it for, their personal security. But it's a different thing when it is done for the security of the city. And so we are going to donate the cameras. We will stand alongside them in their installation, and we will have access to whatever that camera picks up to ensure that those perpetrators, those persons who believe that life is better, in the crime vein, we will send a strong message to them that our degree of tolerance is running out very, very quickly. Yes, actually, there is movement. We are now drafting the relevant agreements. I just wanted Serenity Park out of the way. You would understand that the City Council is spearheading. They spearheaded the reopening of Serenity Park. They are the ones who are the custodians of the caravans. And so I was asked to give us a little time, Mr. Minister. We are rolling out the agreement, which obviously I will proofread before we take it to the public domain. But rest assured, in the next few days, not weeks, in the next few days, we will be holding a press conference to basically outline the terms, conditions, and everything else. Like I said, we will literally hand over the caravans to 22 St. Lucians who will keep them in their possession, in their custody, do whatever they think is necessary, obviously taking liability, insuring against any kind of liability, and having paid for a certain period of time, a certain sum, which I can't disclose now because we have to take cognizance of the cost factor and everything else. This has to be worked out, but I can tell you it will not be anything that is astronomically high. Because if we are here to help people, Castries City Council and this government is not about making profit on the average St. Lucian, but to empower the average St. Lucian to live a better life and to create generational wealth on behalf of each and every family in this country of ours.
There's quite a bit of remedial works taking place in the boulevard, as well as the construction of the halls of justice, which has brought a lot of heavy machinery and these sort of things. What kind of conversations or discussions were had to not impact city life too much while these developments are taking place?
You know, it was only last week I said that you must break an egg to make omelette. The sad thing is, all of us in our own selfish ways, we want the roads repaired, we want the infrastructural development, but we can't handle a little discomfort. And that's the harsh reality. There is a price in development. There is a certain degree of inconvenience that each and every person must tell themselves. You do your introspection and tell yourself that I'm prepared to suffer this slight inconvenience for the better good of this country. I don't know how much we can curtail the activity, because a construction site of such magnitude invariably will entail the meandering of long vehicles, containers, etc., etc. All I'm asking now is that the public bear with us. In the not-too-distant future, I'm sure each and every St. Lucian would be proud of the Hall of Justice and would be proud of the aesthetic appeal it lends to the city.
All right. So yes, the Minister for Sports and the Member of Parliament for Grizzly is particularly excited to be here today for a couple of reasons. One, maybe he might change the order, but Grizzly won its home match, and I stress home match, at the brand new Francis Babalastic mini stadium. And that mini stadium is a labor of love, pun intended, that the MP is officially christened this past Saturday. So without further ado, I'll allow the Minister for Youth Development and Sport, Honorable Kenson Casimir, to tell you more about the stadium launch and, of course, let him gloat about Grizzly's successful match this past Saturday.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. Of course, I stand before you very, very proud of the accomplishments from the weekend. Grizzly Playing Field. It's been a long time coming, and I still refer to it as Grizzly Playing Field, being renamed the Francis Babalastic Grounds. I think what we endeavored to do was not have just an opening of the Francis Lastic Grounds, but really chronicle the history of sport in Groseley that had never been done before. We had never had this venue given that level of attention in terms of upliftment and upgrades, and most importantly, the individuals who went through the former Groseley playing field, the now Francis Lastic grounds, really chronicles some of their achievements and the impact they've had on the next generation of athletes, the current generation and the next generation of athletes. As you would have noted, every single one of them went to the Groseley Primary and Infant School, including yours truly. And of course, I recall days standing in the balcony and looking at the playing field in the condition it was in for all those years. And when we came in, we definitely decided that we were going to do something with it as the MP, and I'm now very happy that we can call it the Francis Babalastic Grounds. We've renamed the stands, the Alton Crafton stands, another individual who's done so much for the community of Groseley as it pertains to youth and sports development. John Eugene, the stands that we are going to construct in the near future on the other side on the Cemetery Road will be named in his honor. Elijah Joseph, another player in the community of Groseley, current coach as well with the Groseley senior men's team, the community center to be refurbished, repurposed into a fitness gym downstairs and a youth center upstairs for alternative sport, table tennis, gaming, chess, and the development of all those alternative sports in the community of Groseley. That particular area will be renamed the Elijah Joseph Youth and Sports Development Center. And of course, we have the likes of Charlie Sonson, OECS champion for a number of years in squash. We renamed the road in front of that venue, the Charlie Sonson Drive, formerly called Conchel Drive. And of course, Terry Verdant, current senior national coach for volleyball, former OECS champion volleyball on a number of occasions, and a former prolific golfer as well. Current, you would say, still playing the street as a golfer. We've renamed the court the Groseley, the Terry Verdant multipurpose court. We have done some work on the court. We redid the lights on the court. We've brought in some brand new rims, and we will be doing some work on the surface of the Groseley multipurpose court. Now, Terry Verdant multipurpose court. So very exciting weekend of events. And of course, this allows me to speak to the semi-professional football league that continues. Groseley defeating former undefeated players from Mabia Valley. Mabia Valley filling in a very formidable team, young players, very good style of football. We've seen the resurgence of Mabia Valley football, and that means we have exciting football ahead of us. Once Mabia Valley is doing well in football, we know the excitement is going to create, and we have been doing some work on the Mabia Valley as a venue. We've done the perimeter wall. We've done some work on the change room and the sitting area, and very soon we will be changing the light fixtures at the Mabia Valley to put it full LED and work on the drainage system at the Mabia Valley. So they too will have the state-of-the-art mini stadium for all the events we expected in St. Lucia in the year 2026. A semi-professional league continues. We'll have some matches at the Groseley playing field tonight, and more small fixtures during the week and on the weekend as well at the Groseley playing field. The Francis Babalastic grounds. Yes, 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 absolutely. It will take some time, but everybody will roll off everybody's tongue very soon, very soon. Yes, so Oates, which is his nickname, has coached almost every single player that has made the national team, the senior men's football team in Groseley. Francis Lastic's legacy is not just the fact that he captained the St. Lucia senior men's football team for a number of years as a defender, and also played professional football with W Connection for a number of years and played for St. Lucia, a number of caps, 61 caps, the most by any player here, and along with Elijah Joseph, for Groseley and St. Lucia. And the people were asking me in the stands, what's caps? The number of appearances you actually make on the pitch for the national team, done in their national colors, the most for Groseley. It was not just about that. The consideration was given to the impact on the blocks in the area, getting individuals from the blocks into the Francis Lastic Academy free of charge for so many years. So it means it meant and it continues to mean that the contribution is beyond the surface of the grounds that we named in his honor. His ability to converse with young people and bring them into the program to really shape their life in a different way is what we also considered when the name was given to the ground. So I think we've made the right decision. We've had so much discussion over the last few weeks, which is what I encourage on all the individuals who's played their part in terms of the development of sport in Grosley, including Leonard Montut, which I spoke about briefly in my presentation. The likes of Julian Hunt as an administrator as well, Felix Finister, Larry Scott, Earl Huntley, Volney, so many individuals who played their part in the development of sport in Grosley, recognized finally, and we're certainly hoping that this trend continues as we go forward.
Do we have like a ballpark figure of maybe how much the mini stadium?
Well, we still have work ongoing as we speak. As you would notice, the week before we were still doing work on the new sitting area we put towards the community center. And we've done some additional work in terms of the change room, in terms of bringing in new stands and that sort of thing. So we are definitely crunching the figures, and very soon you will be given all the information. As I've said many times before, it was a loan guarantee from the government, and as you deal with loans, you draw down based on what you've achieved. So there is no way anybody can draw down on an $80 million loan in a week, as is espoused by persons that just want to be dangerous, just really want to muddy waters and spread propaganda. So you would have, for instance, the work being done at the VG playing field ongoing. So I think it would not be fair to give a total amount for the works that has gone on there. But that information will be given. We have work at the Mabia Valley. As a matter of fact, we have work in almost every single constituency ongoing, and the finances are drawn down based on what's achieved and what's needed next. But I can tell you we have a brand new Minder Phillip Park in terms of the surface, in terms of the lights, in terms of the stands. We've done work on the Masher. We currently have work happening at OG. We started the work on a generator room for Leclerc. We will be doing work on Leclerc as well. And we have almost 20 different activities ongoing as it pertains to facility development under that loan guarantee as we speak.
Just staying on the constituency front, apologies if you have opined on this and maybe I missed it. But a pretty big road expansion taking place in Grosley right now. Twofold question. Can you just speak about the different road rehabilitation projects that you have overseen, and then two, about that road expansion and how it is expected to alleviate some of the stresses of that long commute up north?
Absolutely. If we have to have a discussion on roadworks and infrastructural development in Grosley, we would have to sit down here for about an hour or two. We've had a lot done in the last 4 years. And this, again, is a continuation of some of the work that we know was absolutely necessary. I need to say this, absolutely necessary, because after this interview, I'll get about 20 calls about roads leading into people's homes, some of the interventions that they want in terms of personal interventions. But this is a road that should have been completed more than 10 years ago. Under the previous administration, the previous Labour Party administration, under Philip Pierre as the Minister of Infrastructure, we did get an agreement with the Kuwaiti government to start work on the four-lane highway to Grosley. Part of that agreement meant that we had to expand this particular road, the Norbe-Vesikri road, to allow for traffic to flow through there, and then allow for the work on the main road to occur. It did not happen. We had to come in. I, as MP, had to sit down with the Minister of Infrastructure, the Prime Minister, again, to develop so many roads in Grosley and still ensure that this of national import was absolutely done. So what you've seen is an expansion of a road that a lot of people did not see. They did not envisage that we had so much space. The fact of the matter is we have challenges because some persons built into the road reserve, and the road reserve is reserved for a reason, for future generations and expansion. We did have to acquire a number of properties, just small parcels along the way, again, in the public and in national interest. So we do have some challenges in allowing persons to understand that this is really needed. But we're doing this to the greater good of not just Groseley, not just Vésicuit and Norbert, but to St. Lucia. So you would find the expansion of the road to accommodate vehicles, heavy equipment, and so we cannot just allow for the lanes to be narrow. You'll be seeing a roundabout place between the entrance of Vésicuit and Norbert so that we can have free-flowing traffic. And I am very confident that once this intervention is completed, we will be seeing tremendous relief on the Castries-Groseley Highway. I do not envisage anybody coming from Moshi going onto the Castries-Groseley Highway if you are going into Castries. You have a lane that is opened up safer for you to drive through, so we expect people to take the KWF Vésicuit Norbert Road into Castries. I do not envisage anybody who's living in Grand Riviere or Corinth going into the Castries-Groseley Highway, the Julian Highway, because you have the alternative of passing through Norbert into Vésicuit, KWF, and back into Groseley. So that will provide huge relief. What you've also seen was some of the studies being undertaken for the commencement of work from Monjuro into Cap Estate. We saw under the previous United Workers' Party administration that the focus was pretty much on less than a mile of road. What we've done is we've gotten some of the dynamics of expanding the road from Monjuro, which is the entrance to Moshi. So you start the fall in from there, and you don't just stop by Kilago or by Rodney Heights, as we saw the different iterations of what we wanted to do, but you go all the way to where we're building the brand new Groseley Northern Divisional Police Headquarters. So you have a system where you can get vehicles to get off the main road from Monjuro into Cap Estate, which would free up that particular area. You still have the option of going in through Norbert, in through Vésicuit, and then we would commence from Shock into Monjuro. That would be the final phase of having 4 lanes. By the time that is complete, I don't see us taking more than 10 minutes from Castries to Groseley. If everybody uses the road the way they're supposed to, those who are coming from Moshi use Norbert, those who are coming from Graniver use Norbert, and those who are actually coming from Groseley into Castries using the Julian Hunt Highway. That is the vision, that is the execution that we have as it pertains to stuff happening in the Groseley area.
World Champs coming up this week.
I thought you'd never
Any Julian, and I don't want
Asia
to
Lorenzen.
Yes, Asia Lorenzen.
Asia Lorenzen.
So I don't know if you want to opine on, I guess, this development.
We are very excited about Julian and Asia. I think everybody has been excited about Julian for a number of years now. We're excited about Asia Lorenzen. Very good prospect, individual. Shout out to the Lorenzen family, those who are living in Bexar and some who are living in my constituency of Groseley. Very good prospects, and we've continued to have discussion about having a 4x100 meter relay team in the future. But these 2 individuals qualifying for the World Championships is pretty much very, it speaks to our programming in St. Lucia and the fact that we do have natural talent and ability all over the world. Julian will be competing this weekend in the 100 and, of course, the 200 meters. We saw the work Julian put in towards the 200 meters over the last 6 months, and so we're expecting a double, no pressure, for Julian Alfred this weekend. She looks in fine form. I've heard some discussions as to whether or not she's peaked at the 10.7, 10.8 range, but we're expecting 10.6 something this weekend, which would be a national record again for St. Lucia. And of course, we're expecting an outstanding performance in the 200 meters. Asia has been doing very well when she performed for Michigan in the 100-meter hurdles. We expecting big things from her as well. Obviously, she has her own personal objectives at the World Champs, but she's definitely a work in progress that we're excited about. And of course, we know coming behind the likes of Naomi London and of course Jada Emmanuel, you see how bright it looks for us in track and field in St. Lucia. Good stuff. I thought you were going to tell me about Arsenal and Manchester United there the weekend. Divisional headquarters. We had a site visit last Friday. The member for Justice, Home Affairs, the Minister for Home Affairs, Jeremiah Norbert. We visited the Grosley Police Station. We had a very good site visit on some of the works and improvements that we're going to continue to institute there. We went over to the Grosley Northern headquarters. We saw so many young people currently at work. I'm certainly hoping that before the end of this year, that at least one of the buildings can be complete so that we can have police starting to move in there to free up some of the other areas that we need in the Grosley community that they currently occupy. But the work continues in earnest there, and we've been waiting for so long. The police have been out of a home for so long in Grosley, and we're very excited about the work that has continued there. The Grosley Polyclinic, the expansion, again on stream. We're certainly hoping that before the end of the year that this new expanded area will be available to the people of Grosley. And again, these things are not only for the people of Grosley, but the visitors who come on a Friday night and the weekend, and the persons who commute the Castries-Grosley Highway to use Pigeon Point, and all the entertainment that we have in this beautiful community. An emergency ward, a place to actually house more nurses and doctors, and to ensure that it is 24 hours. We know how long we've needed a 24-hour polyclinic in Grosley, and I'm very confident that towards the end of this year, hopefully, I don't have the actual final dates, that very soon we will be moving into the new area at the Grosley Polyclinic. Another promise made before we came in, and a promise that will be kept for sure.
Afternoon, Minister. Just a quick question from me in regards to the Granivier River, in terms of any work still be happening there in the future, as well as since we're still currently within the hurricane season, and a lot of residents are still quite fearful of that area.
Thank you for that question. The Granivier River, the Rivière-Meta River, obviously most of the names would tell you the history of the area in terms of what actually obtained. We've been liaising with the Ministry of Infrastructure for funding under retaining walls and, of course, the waterways interventions. We had a comprehensive, but we still have some areas that we need to desilt. We had a comprehensive program for desilting to ensure that the river continues to flow towards the sea. But in terms of the interventions, in terms of Granivier, the retaining wall, we did get a call just last week for contractors for the area to commence some work closer to the Corinth area where some of the media individuals reside and are asking questions about. We've gotten a costing for that particular area in terms of a retaining wall, again, in excess of $500,000 to really institute a very good program there. We're certainly hoping that the finances are made available as soon as possible. But in the meantime, try our best to desilt and allow the water to flow as smoothly as possible. I'll definitely be speaking to the senior minister today about when this work will commence, because we have people in Flamboyant Drive, in Corinth, in all those areas. They've been waiting in earnest to see some real work being done on that river to avert any of the effects of climate change in those communities.
Thank you very much.
All right.
So the Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Dr. Elias Hilaire, is back from a official visit to, well, he led St. Lucia's delegation to Expo in Osaka, Japan, and he also made a stop for an official visit in Taiwan. So without further ado, I'll allow the Minister to give you a brief on his mission.
Thank you very much to everyone. So it was very exciting whilst I was out, so I'm sure you have a lot to ask me. Thank you very much. Well, I'll start off with the the statement that I had the delegation to World Expo. I think you probably would have seen some of the feedback that we got. It was a fantastic experience for St. Lucia at World Expo. We put on the St. Lucia Day. In the morning, we had the official ceremony where I spoke as well as the Director General for World Expo, and St. Lucia put on a cultural presentation presenting St. Lucia. We then had the parade of St. Lucia through World Expo, which was another fantastic presentation. The turnout, the support was really amazing. We had a fashion show at the St. Lucia Pavilion at World Expo, and in the night we had the concert, St. Lucia, well, Rhythms of Ayanola, really presenting the culture of St. Lucia. All in all, it was a fantastic experience, I must tell you. The day before, we hosted the St. Lucia Business Forum. It was hosted by Brand St. Lucia Export, CIP, SLTA, and the Invest St. Lucia, where we invited a number of business interests in Japan and in the neighboring countries, and presentations on possibilities for investment in St. Lucia were made, as well as St. Lucia Tourism Authority presenting on St. Lucia as a premier destination. The CIP did its bit in terms of explaining the CIP program and the latest developments that were taking place. And of course, Export St. Lucia gave an overview of the products and services that St. Lucia exports. We had quite a large delegation, quite a few creatives participated in World Expo, and it really added to the experience at World Expo. At the end of it, I think we were really touched by the response we got from the audience and from the Japanese, who were attending. We were really not even, well, I think we were all surprised that they were so familiar with our music and, some of St. Lucia's culture, and it really said a lot. Our creators put on quite a display. I mean, it's one of those moments when you literally got goosebumps for, as a St. Lucian to see the presentations that took place. And what was remarkable, because at that same time, St. Lucia was actually participating in Carifesta. So we had a separate delegation in Barbados presented, and I'm sure you'd be aware of some of the events that took place in Barbados. So it really showed our capacity that we were able at the same time to have two major St. Lucian productions and major delegations of creatives, one in regional in Barbados and one international at Expo, displaying St. Lucia and presenting St. Lucia to the world. So that was very well received. After Osaka, of course, visited an official visit to Taiwan, accompanied by Minister Hippolyte and Minister Henry. We got the opportunity to express our appreciation to the government and people of Taiwan for the tremendous support that they've given St. Lucia over the last few years, especially their support for national development projects, such as Uranora International Airport Redevelopment Project and the St. Jude Hospital completion project. We were also very happy with the fact that they have made a significant contribution to community development in this country. So many small community projects, footpaths, steps and walls, and throughout St. Lucia, as well as social development programs. The Taiwanese, through the Constituency Development Program, is the primary financier of that program. So we got an opportunity to meet, presented to the President, as well as the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of Culture, where I personally thank them for the support they've been giving us in terms of the creative sector. Taiwan has been a big supporter of our creative sector. In fact, right now in St. Lucia, there's a workshop going on with a master builder from Taiwan, teaching our builders, costume builders, on new techniques in costume building. I think this ends on Thursday this week. So we got an opportunity to speak with them. They confirmed that they will be assisting us in the construction of a National Cultural Center in St. Lucia. So we're going to be looking forward to that. And as soon as we have some final details, we will be presenting it to the media and to stakeholders. So yeah, it was a very worthwhile 2 weeks, very productive. And I think, we achieved quite a lot. So that's all the good news. We'll come to the bad news in a while. Yeah.
Afternoon, Minister.
Okay,
So in regards to with next month being as well as Uniqueal, I just want to actually ask in representative to the Ministry of Tourism as well as the Ministry of Culture, Department of Culture, sorry, in terms of the participation within the Uniqueal activities for this year, as well as the anticipation for the ranking of tourism as well during the Creole months? How's it going to be for this year?
Well, I must say I haven't received the latest briefing on the preparations for Journée Creole as yet. I know preparations have started for La Marguerite, the celebration of La Marguerite, but I cannot tell you I have the most up-to-date information. Probably next week, Monday, I can give you some more details as to the final program for Creole Heritage Month. But let me tell you, it's been non-stop since May. For us in the ministry, from May we went into Carnival, from Carnival straight into Emancipation. From Emancipation we had World Expo, we had Carry Festa, and now we're going straight into Creole Heritage Month. So it's been quite a lot. Just in connection with the presentations that were made, we're actually exploring having a production maybe by the end of the month that will be presenting both the Carry Festa presentation and the Japan presentation to the public here in St. Lucia, because we've received quite a few persons saying to us, when will they be able to experience that in St. Lucia? So we're working on it now, the costings and the logistics. As you can imagine, for example, in Japan, you have a lot more technical support, space, size of stage, and infrastructure. So, but we're working on it, and hopefully we will have the production for St. Lucians to be able to enjoy it.
On the front of World Expo, while some may have internalized it in a good way, I think maybe because it's a lack of understanding, but they think that it's this one day or this 1 week thing that persons fly out and we just participate in. But can you give a broader scope of what the expo is, how long it's actually running for, and explain that the expo is still going on and is scheduled to end in October?
You see, sometimes you either allow some of the criticism and what appears to be criticism to just fly by, and sometimes you probably think it may be necessary that you take it on. When we came into government in 2021, there was already in place approvals of monies from the CIP for St. Lucia to participate in Dubai Expo, in World Expo in Dubai. Ironically, then the money was approved for the Prime Minister's office, that was under Alan Chasney, to manage that participation. We came in and we said, no, that's not how it should be done. This is not a Prime Minister's initiative, and we handed it to Export St. Lucia to take care of it and to manage it, because Export St. Lucia is the agency that exports the goods and services of St. Lucia, and World Expo is about presenting your country to the world for 6 months. So this pavilion in Osaka has been running from earlier this year, and it will close down in early October. So this has been running every single day. And you talk about all countries of the world. Some have some huge structures that they built on their own. They spend their own monies. Countries like ours, we receive ours free of charge from the Japanese Expo, which means we have a much smaller space. So we found the whole, support there. We didn't question it then. Nobody really questioned it then. And of course, now there's this expo, and the next expo will be in Saudi Arabia in 4 years' time. So this is a regular world exposition being held to showcase your country to the world. Each country has 1 day of the year where they are required to present to the world through culture, through theatrical presentations, what the country is all about. So it is not just a 1 day. We've been participating in this for months, and it will go on until October. But there's 1 day. The government of Japan provides for most of your country to participate. So it's not like we bore all the costs for all the participation. Of course, we did make our contribution for participation, but they would bear most of the costs for our participation. But World Expo raises a chance. This World Expo in Osaka will be visited by almost 25 million people. And St. Lucia, up to the time I was there, had already registered 1 million visitors to our pavilion. Little St. Lucia in one little corner of the pavilion. I mean, people have actually come looking for St. Lucia to see and what it is all about and what St. Lucia is all about. We've registered over 1 million visitors to our pavilion. And that's why it's created, for the world to get to know about each other.
Speak on the GPH. The opposition have been putting out miscontextualized facts and in some cases misinformation on the GPH deal. Did not be in the best interest of the government to publish the GPH agreement?
Well, the first thing I'll do is publish what they had agreed to. Yeah? To show you. Because I noticed in their statement, they spoke about a cabinet committee had rejected the GPH agreement. Let me tell you for a fact, and I'll probably prepare, Riani, give you all the documents so you can prepare a package for the media. What the cabinet committee had rejected was what they had agreed to, not what we had agreed to. Let me give you the chronology. We came into government in July. There was a GPH proposal. There was a committee that reviewed it and told our cabinet, do not accept this. So the rejection by the cabinet committee was of their proposal. And then cabinet set up a new committee to go and negotiate a new GPH agreement. You following it? So when they said, oh, cabinet, they actually, let me tell you, I've never met a group of individuals who have no shame and lack of integrity like United Workers' Party, in all seriousness. So they are publishing a document saying, this is evidence that the committee rejected it. They are right, but what the committee rejected was their agreement. And we then went and negotiated a new agreement with GPH, which included adding Soufre, bringing in Banans Bay, because I can tell you, and I have a copy of the contract, they awarded a contract to a private company to redevelop Banans Bay at government's cost. And we told GPH, no, you have to do it as part of the GPH development. So what I would probably have to start off doing is giving you what they had agreed to. And when you see all the criticism they have of how much GPH is earning and what head tax, how it has been shared, you will see what they had agreed to. Now, we don't like to do those things. Because think about it, as a country, you cannot allow squabbles between political parties to become a national disgrace where investors' negotiations and business have been thrown out in public. People will lose confidence in your country. Think about it. No serious investors want to go to a country where two parties start quarreling and all the documents start becoming public. People want to have confidence that no matter who is in power, the government respects decisions and it continues. That's how you build countries, when there is confidence. So we've resisted. We've never made public all the exchanges with the guys in Viewford, what's the name? DSH. Let me tell you, that one is another story. You understand? We've never done discussions with Carbot. We've never done those things. We've taken blows on some of them. We've kept quiet because there's a bigger picture, and it is the interest of St. Lucia. We do not want investors believing they cannot trust going to this country because any discussion can become a whole public scandal. We don't want that for our country. And I can tell you, I can share with you documents on the GPH discussions, even discussions they had with cruise lines. But you don't want to do those things because you want to respect government and the processes of government. But they're pushing you to the point where you almost just have to release those documents. So maybe we'll start off showing what they had discussed with GPH and what we rejected, because the committee said to reject it. And the committee did say that, to reject it. But it is their agreement it told us to reject.
I had a question to you. The UWP's rhetoric of providing a hand up and not a hand out has caught on, with persons also asking what more the SLP ever has to offer than handouts, meaning in many instances the STEP program and small contracts. What is the importance of these programs and how does it serve the beneficiaries?
No, you have to step back a bit. Mm-hmm. When persons who probably are privileged The leader of the United Workers' Party is a privileged individual. He says so all the time. He owns a hotel, and whatnot. And he will look at poor people and tell them about they getting handouts, and you must not give handouts. When pensioners get an increase in their pension, that's a handout. We should not give it an increase to pensioners. When children go to secondary school and at the end of Form 5, their parents cannot pay CXC subjects for them, and they leave secondary school not having done subjects because they could not pay for subjects for them. You say that's a handout you're giving out to them and not a hand up? When you pay for nurses to be able to complete their studies at SAFA, that's a handout and not a hand up. When you give a first-gen scholarship, that's a handout and not a hand up. When you have a youth economy that can say to young people, we'll take a chance on you, and we will give you a grant so you can go and buy a camera. I don't know how many if any of you in here got youth economy grants. But when you can get that support, that's a handout and not a hand up. When creative economy grants, can I tell you all, in less than 2 weeks after this was announced by the Prime Minister and we released the forms, 279 persons applied. In less than 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks. The $350,000 almost gone. Less than 2 weeks. If I get the update for this week, and I still have individuals messaging me this morning asking me if they will qualify based on the little vibe they want to create. That's a handout and not a hand up. Where do they get those notions from? The same people who told us in the house about mendicants. We're making mendicants of St. Lucia when we take care of them. I heard a 7-point plan last night mentioned about free tuition for SAFA. I'll give you the exact date. Riani will remind me. To go to the Hansard and listen to Alan Chasney in the House speak about SAFA Lewis Community College, virtually saying that we're wasting money on the students that go in and paying, for the students. Virtually saying that. Saying that. I'll give you the exact transcript of what he said in the House if you want. I'll give you the date in the House. Because I remember standing up and speaking to him and saying to him, these are young people. It's an investment when we pay school fees for them. Today they want to say that they will come and give free tuition for SAFA Lewis Community College. Let me tell you, I think they are schizophrenic. Honestly, I think it's political schizophrenia. The same person will say they will reduce gas prices how many days after they win, when on the day of their victory rally, he said he had the paper in his hand and he's going to sign it and prices will go down immediately. And it never happened. So let me tell you something. This is schizophrenia. I mean, no, seriously, a lot of sympathy for them, So I don't know this notion of handouts. If you tell me a government is just giving individuals money for doing no work, for doing nothing, then you have a problem. But if a government is targeting assistance to vulnerable groups, when we give back to school assistance, that's a handout? I don't know. I don't share that philosophy. Sorry.
Cruise season is on the horizon. What kind of projections are we expecting? What is it going to look like this time around?
Well, we're expecting the cruise season to be bigger than last year. And you hear a lot of talk about cruise in crisis. And let me tell you, I've never, I don't know which reality we live in. For somebody to tell me that tourism industry is in crisis and in serious decline, 2024 was, for us, the best year ever in the history of St. Lucia. The best year ever in the history of St. Lucia. Since then, we've had about 500 rooms off the market, which means we have less rooms. For the last 2 months or so, many of the hotels have decided that they're going to refurbish many of their rooms. So even more rooms are off the market. So of course, you'll have a slight decline because you have less rooms. Now, we're still on par with 2019. That was the best year ever. Put that in perspective. We're slightly below last year, which was our best year ever. And tourism is in crisis. where does the crisis come from? Somebody says the planes are coming in empty. I don't know which planes are coming in empty. We're expecting a very good season. For the cruise tourism arrivals, we are expecting increases over last year. The thing about the cruise season, it runs for us from October to May, but it's registered January to December, for statistical reasons. But we're expecting a better season this year. And based on our work with GPH and our projections, within 2 years, we expect to go close to 1 million arrivals, which will be phenomenal. A lot of work is happening now, as you can see, on the waterfront. The vendors arcade work has started. Soufre work has started. In Banan, we've just been patient, giving the fishermen enough time to sort out themselves, despite UWP trying their best to tell them they should each get $1 million. We've been patient with that situation. But it's going to be a very exciting season this year, very exciting season. I'm looking forward to it. Already a couple cruise ships have arrived, and we're really expecting, a phenomenal season.
Any new cruise ships, yes, or some mega cruise ships coming on the market will be seen?
Well, we're hoping to get the mega of all, the biggest of all, but we're just waiting for confirmation and see what happens.
Is the development in any way going to impact some of the cruises coming in? Do you anticipate anything with the work?
No, not really. The way it is phased and managed. So, for example, if you notice in the vendors arcade, they start in the old fire service spot first. And when that's completed, they'll go over to the existing vendors arcade, so that won't affect it. The development on the promenade is not really going to affect arrivals. The upgrade of Point Seraphine will not take place during the season, so it's not really going to affect at all. Soufre, where more of the luxury, smaller yachts go to. Soufre gets the smaller luxury yachts. They've already repaired one of the jetties, so it won't affect arrivals.
And just a follow-up question in regards to, as well with tourism. So I know that a majority of the hotels are now moving into the way of having couples resorts and starting to move away from family-style resorts. Will that actually provide a bit of an effect within the tourism sector?
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the nail on the head. It is a major concern for us. St. Lucia is moving more and more into a luxury destination, profile, and the family vacation is being affected, because when you look at St. James Club, which is family, is now couples. You look at Zoe Train Marigo, that was couple, family is now couples. It's really, with the Redry Beach hotels all broken down for the reconstruction, all those family options are off the market now. So St. Lucia, it has affected, especially out of the UK. Our numbers out of the UK has been affected because a lot of the family, travelers came from the UK, and those options are gone. So we are desperately looking for an investor who will build a family-type operation. Now, at Montpimad, there is going to be a family hotel, but that won't open until next year. But we're still hoping we can get an investor that can build a suitable family-size operation to help us in that side of the market, because it's starting to close, and I don't think we're really happy with that.
Good afternoon, Minister. A video from Parliament regarding this push situation has found its way into the public domain. Some are alleging that it confirms Mr. Charles' claims, others are alleging that it doesn't. Do you have anything to say on this matter?
Well, first of all, when this started, Miss Charles said, I put my hand in the small of her back and pushed her out of Parliament. That's what she said. And I'm sure you recall that I pushed her out of Parliament. And I had a video clipping, which I saw, and then there's a second video which came out. I think there was an operative of the UWP that said her police sources had given her a video. I'm a little circumspect in what I can say because, of course, she made a formal complaint to the police. So it's a formal police investigation now. And I will not want to say much about that because I'm sure if it's a formal police investigation, the police will reach out to me and I will have to, account for what she said. But I can say one thing to you, one thing. The first thing we need to ask is, and I'm sure all of you remember, because all of you were there, the Prime Minister was being interviewed. So she wasn't there interviewing the Prime Minister. She didn't have a mic. She didn't have a cameraman with her, but she was inside Parliament. So why was she inside Parliament? And of course, you saw all the clippings with her moving around, and she openly saying what she was doing. So clearly, she was not in Parliament innocently. Now, I know myself. If anyone, whether the media, the persons I work with, say to me, Minister, you have said something which is offensive to us. Or if anyone would say to me, Minister, you maybe reached out, you touched, you shouted, or anything which was offensive. My approach to it would be, one, to say to the individual, I'm sorry if you felt that way. Why? Because sometimes it is not what you meant, but how somebody took it. And sometimes, even if you don't believe you did something wrong, but somebody felt offended by what you said or how you acted, you apologize. And if the young lady felt offended by anything I told her, to tell her that she really should not be there because she's there just to provoke people and that she should be outside, or whether she felt offended that I tapped on her back or whatever, I would have apologized. But she didn't choose to do that. She instead made it a political issue. And first of all, she was in there in pursuit of political objectives. She wore a protester's shirt inside Parliament, not interviewing anybody. So it was political. And of course, she went on and advertised and made a police report saying that I had pushed her out of Parliament and made it a big political issue. So we'll deal with it within that space, within the political space and within the legal space. So I'm not going to comment on the video or the clipping. That will be dealt with by the appropriate authorities. One thing I can also say is that, look, the UWP will not rest easy until they come at me and get me. That has been the case since 2015. It's 10 years, 10 years that Alan Shastley has been tortured by my presence in politics. 10 years. It does not surprise me, and there'll be more to come. I live every single day of my life, conscious of the fact that I'm a political target. And I just have to stand in Parliament and look at Alan Shastley and he turns pink. No, it is the reality. So for 10 years, they've been this torture, and it will get worse because the political season has opened. And yesterday they declared full throttle ahead. Now, if you know the Labour Party, you know what you can expect over the next few months. It's going to be a long, arduous struggle for them. It's not going to be easy because they've asked for it. And over the next few months, the Labour Party will bring out its very best for them. I think we've worked hard, we've delivered, and we've shown the people of St. Lucia that we've put them first, and we are working for them, and we will display our full force. So I expect that there'll be many more like this. There'll be more AI. There'll be more created videos. They will be speeding up the speed of videos. They'll do all kinds of things. And I expect that they will come after me with everything they have. I've survived it twice before, and I'm sure, with the grace of God, I'll survive it again. And the fact is we are delivering for the people. That's the most important thing. Look at our track record. And you will see that we are government, not that we don't make mistakes, not that we're infallible. We make mistakes because we are human. And every single one of us will make mistakes. But it will be long and a difficult campaign for them because the people of St. Lucia will have to judge between a party, when it was in government, failed the people of St. Lucia. And I heard talk about COVID, it was COVID. Do you know when elections took place in 2016? June 6, 2016. Do you know when St. Lucia shut down because of COVID? In 2021. Was it March 2021? 2020, March 2020. So they had between June 2016 and March 2020, almost 4 years to deliver. And they said it's COVID that prevented them from delivering in those 4 years. COVID? Now look at our 4 years. Compare their 4 years, or their 3.5 years, and compare ours. And you will see the difference between the two. And we're not finished yet. We still have a few more months. And certainly for me in my constituency, I have a few more months to deliver on a few more projects that I've started. So, I mean, if the young lady, I will deal with it as it comes by. And like I said, if she had felt offended by the fact that I told her she should not be in there and she should be outside, if she felt that I treated her in any way, I have no difficulty in having a reason with her and dealing with the matter. That's what you do. But she made it a political issue. It was all about politics. And it was all about creating this scandal and this big thing. And it wasn't me alone that was targeted. Everybody else was targeted. So that's what it is. And I will fight it like I've fought everything else before. I don't have to make no big noise, no big drama. I don't have to go on no live feed and do anything like that to do it. I'll just deal with it as it has to be dealt with.
Thank you very much.
Just one more thing before we go. I said that was the good news, so the bad news has to be, of course, the death of Tony Paul as Minister of Broadcasting. I think I really need to express, on behalf of the government and people of St. Lucia, our condolences to him. In fact, I saw him just a couple of days before I traveled to Japan. You know, we presented the 2 hotels at Harbor Club, and he was there for the media session in the afternoon. And he asked quite a lot of questions, and, you know, we laughed and joked, and in his typical, very jovial, engaging way, you know, he sat at the same table with me, and, you know, ran a little old talk, and typical, you know, Tony Paul. And so when I heard that he had died, it was a really, really shocker. And it brought to reality just how, you know, life is. It can come and go, and any one of us at any one point in time, you know, can just exit, you know, this world. So as minister, certainly have to say to his family to accept our condolences. And he was a fantastic guy. And those of us who interacted with him will tell you, he really, you know, you don't talk about the spice of life. People like him really makes life, you know, a joy. And, you know, I'm sure as your colleague, you would appreciate that it is a serious loss. I don't know anybody that said anything bad about him, you know, so I really want to put on record the government and people of St. Lucia, you know, condolences on his passing, and to say to his family to be strong in this time of, you know, grief and distress. Thank you very much.
That's all, folks. This year, I don't believe
Hello, are you not sure? Sit down, true. I think the moon tablet saying you know when you quiet lad, the big in morning? That's the only time you quiet. When you big in morning,